Could you tell me a bit about your experience of self-harm?
Well, usually when it came to self-harm for me, it was too much emotions or thoughts or even triggers for a situation. And it's it's a release of emotions, almost like an adrenaline rush. Usually it's just a reaction to a situation that we have no control to, or a reaction to something that has happened. And it's in a release of emotion where we can't get it out any other way. And that sort of pain helps in that way. But for parents, it's hard to understand because you just see that your kid's injured and you just want to help them. And it gets scary when it can get bad. So I think the main thing to remember as parents too is that it's not on you guys as parents. It's how us young people are not able to emotionally regulate ourselves to the point where we have to get out our emotions. And the only way we know how to is either getting angry or hurting ourselves. And it gives you that relief, so you keep doing it. Because obviously, if it wasn't working, no one would keep self harming.
What might be helpful for parents to understand about responding when a young person is self-harming?
Well, the big thing that comes to mind is that name calling or yelling never really helps anything in those sort of situations. Usually, us as young people is feeling that emotional and helpless that we are at that point. Obviously, as parents, you guys are going to be feeling like that. But that anger from fight or flight is never gonna help with that situation. But it is hard during those sort of situations, and I know it's never possible. And as parents, you guys, you gotta remember that you are human and you're gonna make mistakes. So, main thing is just trying to stay calm. I think mum, towards the end of my mental health, we got into an argument. We were waiting for police to be called, and instead of just yelling back, she just remained silent, didn't respond, didn't react, and it was it was a lot better because I was very angry in that situation, and anything she would have said would have just made me angry. So she sort of realized that was the situation and didn't want to add to it. So she didn't remove herself physically, but she removed herself vocally, and that made a big difference with how I responded back.
What have you found to be helpful alternatives to self-harm for releasing emotion?
For me, I noticed when I started punching the punching bag without any gloves on, that was a big one. Like my knuckles would get quite bruised, but that was more of a release because I could punch the bag as hard as I want without damaging anyone or any property. To get that release of emotions, that sort of pain, but you're not hurting yourself. You know what I mean? It was channeling that anger towards other things and those emotions to other things. And then over time, as I knew what worked more for me, and it's different for everyone. And the only way you're gonna do it is over time and over experimentation. But the way that we get taught right now in hospital is not the right way because it's all very clinical and not very practical. This is what you should do, but when you do it, it does nothing for you. And then they don't tell you what to do when it does nothing for you. Because then you get told, call 000 if you feel unsafe. I don't want to have to call 000. I want to emotionally regulate myself. I don't want to have to have a situation where I'm either hurting myself or having to go to hospital because I'm aggressive or just because of that situation. There needs to be a better way of figuring out what works and what doesn't work. For me, long drives with my parents worked because one, I wasn't with anything. Two, I liked going for drives and I liked my music, and we could go anywhere. As I got older too, I sort of realized it was only taking away from my life. Like I was missing school, I was missing friends, I was missing events, I was missing birthdays, and it would just eventually stop doing anything for me. And I would hurt myself, and I'd just be in pain and no release.
Looking back on what was such a difficult time, what would you have liked you and your family to have known back then that you know now?
I mean, I would have liked my family to know that it's a slow process. It's still going. Like it hasn't stopped. The period of acuteness was maybe 4 or 5 years, if not six. Even 3 years ago, if I had told myself or my parents, or someone had told myself or my parents now that I'm living out of home, I'm managing my own medications, I'm working a job, I've got a partner, like 3 years ago when all the sharps are locked up, you're on a treatment authority. That's not even imaginable. But like being able to hear from other people that have actually gone through it was a big thing. Because for us, we never got to hear that other people were going through the same thing. It was just this is what you were meant to do. We couldn't understand that there were other parents that were going through this, or there were other people that had. There was no resources to even show us that there were other people or hear their experiences, and that was a big thing. It's like, well, you're all alone. You're already losing people. It'd be nice to at least talk to people who know or going through similar things or gone through similar things, rather than talking to someone who has no experience with dealing with mental health, so they can only sympathize but never understand. And that's the big difference. I think people sympathize with you but never understand what you truly go through. And having someone there that understands what you go through instead of just sympathizing with you makes a bigger difference. I think the main thing too is even as a family, if you go a couple steps backwards, you got to remember how much forward you've come as well. Like you're not in hospital. There's always a positive in a situation, and to focus on the positive is the main thing because it gets lost in a lot of the negatives.